The last remaining thing to do for our application is to handle the request. Like other things in CakePHP, this can be done in a fairly intuitive manner. Our model has a save method that we can use to interact with the database. We now just need to get the data and use that to save it. Let's go ahead and open our controller. The first thing we want to do is in our index action, we want to determine if the user's loading the form for the first time or if it's been posted. So we'll create an if statement, and inside we can use this special request property of the controller class. It has a function called is, and you can pass to it the value post. If the form has been submitted in order to get the page, this will resolve as true, in which case we can assume that the user has just submitted the form. The first thing we'll want to do is get our post information. So we can set a data property equal to, and then we can use our request object. In order to save this, we can access the mailing list model. Because the name of the controller is mailing lists, it will automatically include the mailing list model if it exists. So we can refer to this mailing list. That will refer to our model, and it has a function called save that's pre-built onto there by the framework. And we'll just save our data. Because the post variables are going to match our mailing list object, because the way we set it up, everything's going to work just fine, and when I call save, it's going to take that data, serialize it, and save it to our database. So if I go to my form at localhost CakePHP, I can fill out information and submit it. You can see something happened. It at least processed it. Now we don't know if it was confirmed or if we had any issues. We can only assume that everything worked. One thing that you're going to notice is an issue is if you fill out multiple items in your checkbox, it's going to cause an error. The reason why is because it's going to set everything up as an array, and our database isn't really set to handle an array. So there's a couple things we need to do to clean up our processing. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to look to see if that particular property is an array. And this gives us an opportunity to see how the data is formatted coming over. The way our data is structured is in a special array. So the first thing we can do is we can use our array to access the interest property and see if it itself is an array. If it's an array, that means the user has selected more than one box. So we can go ahead and say is array. And now we want to refer to that specific item. And the way we do is we refer to the data object. And inside we can say mailing list, which matches our data model name. And then we have a second array inside of that array, which is going to represent each of the fields. So what I'm looking for here is I'm looking to see if the interests are an array. If they are, then what I'm going to do is I'm simply just going to turn it into a string so I can save it into my database. So I'm going to rewrite that same property. And I can use this special implode function, which will essentially take an array and just bring it out into a comma delimited string. And I'll pass to it data, mailing list, interests. And if you want to make it cleaner, you could put it on the second line and maybe add a tab in there. So that should all be good to go. The next thing I want to do is instead of just bringing them back to the form, I want to redirect them to a different page. I can do this by using a special redirect function. So I'll type in this, redirect, and then you specify where you want to redirect to. In this case, I'm only redirecting to another action inside of this controller. So all I need to specify is action, and I can set that equal to, and we'll just call it thanks. So that's going to redirect to the action in this controller. So now I need to just create that action. So public function thanks. And we can go ahead and set the title just like we did in the main action. So it'll be this set title for layout. And we can do the same one. You could even just copy and paste the other one. Since it's really the same functionality, we don't need to have that different of a title. If you remember from the View movie, CakePHP is automatically going to look for a corresponding template. So it's going to look in the mailing list directory for a template called thanks.ctp. So let's go ahead and create that file. And inside of this file, we'll simply say thanks for signing up. Now let's go back and make sure you've checked multiple strings. So go ahead and fill out the form however you like. The one thing to make sure of is that you have a properly formatted email address, and also make sure to select a few of these interests so it passes the array and we can make sure that function is working correctly. So go ahead and click Join Now. And you can see it redirects us to the thanks action in the URL. So there's our application in CakePHP. We've seen that Cake hides a lot of internal processing, allowing us to get to the business of building our applications without having to write a lot of redundant code. This is really the strength of CakePHP.